This set of videos is going to cover triads. Those in particular would be 3, 5, and 1. That's 3 on the bottom, 5 in the middle, and 1 on top. Major, minor, diminished, and augmented types of triads, which are basically the fundamental root types of chords, or should I say voicings, for all chords there to follow. So let's start with 3, 5, 1s on the top of the and when I say top, I mean the highest strings here, the G, B, and E string. And there's going to be 4 forms: major, minor, diminished, and augmented, and we'll go through those 3 forms in just a moment, one at a time. See you in the first form. This first form is G major 3, 5, 1. We're going to use G major as sort of a starting point or a root point for these chords, and later on we'll explore some different ways that these can be integrated. But for right now, it's important that you know how to play them. So this first one is G major 3, 5, 1, and the third of G is B, the fifth of G is D, and the first of G is G, of course. And the formula for a major chord, if you remember correctly, is the first degree, third degree, and fifth. So 1, 3, and 5. This one's 3, 5, 1, so 3 is on the bottom. So the B's on the bottom, the D's in the middle, and the G's on the top. And so that's a 3, 5, 1 G chord on the G, B, and E strings on the top. And just like any other note or chord in the musical system, if you trap all of the notes and you move them up 1 fret, you'll get the next chord that is also major 1/2 step higher than where you were. So this is G major, this is G sharp major, this is A major, this is A sharp major, and so on. 3 on the bottom, 5 in the middle, 1 on top. Of course, the notes are different at each stop along the line, but you essentially get the picture. Or you should. If you don't, watch the music theory videos. They're very helpful. So 3, 5, 1, 3 in the bottom, 5 in the middle, 1 on top, G major. 3, 5, 1. See you in the next set. This next set of triads is G minor. 3, 5, 1, and that would be flat 3, 5, and 1 to those that are trying to deduce this in musical terms. So 1, flat 3, and 5 is the formula for a minor chord, and the 3 is going to be on the bottom, so we're just going to toss that over in the bottom, just like we did the chord before. Remember the major chord, it's always good to do the major first, and that way you can deduce everything from the major position. So if you remember correctly, we're doing a major chord like this, and then we took this bottom note, or we're going to take this bottom note, and we're going to move it down in line with the rest of them. Move it down 1/2 step, which makes it a minor chord. This is a G minor, 3 on the bottom, 5 in the middle, and 1 on top on the G, B, and E strings. So if you just do this, that's it. That's all it is. And just like the major chords, if you take this and you move it up a fret, it's a G sharp minor. If you move it up another one, it's an A minor. If you move it up another one, it's an A sharp minor, and B minor, and so on. So you can play all your chords, all your minor chords can be played using this position. It's pretty cool. There's also a lot of other stuff you can do. Stay tuned, we'll see you in the next set. This next set of chords is a 3, 5, 1 chord on the G, B, and E strings. This is G diminished. And diminished chords are kind of funky. They are 1, flat 3, flat 5. Anytime you flat the 5 in a chord, you are messing with the overall fundamental structure of the chord. The 1 and the 5 music is based on a system of fifths via the circle of fifths, circle of fourths, whatever you want. But the circle of fifths is essentially a musical tool. There's a video on the circle of fifths on this site. I suggest you watch it. Actually, there's a couple. But essentially, whenever you take the fifth and you flat it, you're doing what's called a tritone. And that's also another buzzword that you might want to investigate. And essentially, that means that you're going 6 half steps up from tonic, and another 6 and you'd be back where you started. But regardless, you're doing a flat 5. You're taking the 5 and you're flatting it, but you're also flatting the third. A minor chord is 1, flat 3, a minor chord is 1 flat 3, 5, and a diminished chord is 1 flat 3, and the 5 gets flatted too. So seeing that flats are essentially proportionate to the amount of tension in a chord, when you do the 5 as well, it's a big deal. Anytime the 5 gets messed with, it's a big deal. It means you have to resolve that chord. Anyway, diminished chords are kind of grouchy by nature. We'll go ahead and listen to this diminished chord here. It's going to be a G diminished, and we're going to start with the major form first. This is the major form, 3 in the bottom, 5 in the middle, and 1 on top. So that's a G major. Now we're going to flat the 3rd down 1 fret, and we're also going to take the 5, we're going to flat that as well, and that leaves us with something that looks sort of like a miniature D7 down here, okay? And of course our ring finger is going to remain on G. So essentially what we did is we just slid these two that were here down, and we flatted the 3, we flatted the 5, and we're keeping G on the top. And as you can see, that's what a G major, that's what a G major used to look like now that it's diminished. So we've got a G major here, move it down, G diminished. Also, it's important to know that diminished chords also are sort of retroactive in the way that each note in the chord can serve as the tonic or root. So with the chord that we just did, this could be a G diminished, it could also be an F diminished or a C sharp diminished, depending on which note we want to call tonic. In this case, we wanted to call tonic G, so it's a G diminished. Anyway, thanks for watching. There's a lot of different stuff coming up. Please stay tuned. We'll see you in the next triad. This last set of triads is the augmented triad. An augmented triad is 1, 3, sharp 5. So the 1 and the 3, seeing that the 1 and the 3 are in there, it's a cousin of the major chord. As to where diminished is the cousin of the minor chord. But the diminished and the augmented chord are part of the same group. Creatively speaking, they're both very dissonant chords, and they both don't like a whole lot of harmony. And they're not supposed to, because that's not their job. Their job is to sort of disrupt things and mix it up a little bit and create a situation where resolution is required. It's, I would say, more often than not, a diminished chord does elicit a sense of resolution, or a sense of needed resolution, should I say, and an augmented chord is a milder form of that same type of tension. They're just basically, they're throwing the 5 out 1/2 step away from the tonic instead of towards the tonic, which is a different kind of tension. So if we start with our bass pattern or our major pattern first, a primary major pattern, then we've got our G. Remember, we're using G as our example in all of these triads. Then we start out with 3 on the bottom, 5 in the middle, and then 1's on top. So we've got 3, 5, and 1. Now with an augmented chord, what we're going to do is just take the 5 and sharp it. We're going to leave the 1 and the 3 exactly where they are. So let's just take this note here and throw it up here right next to the 3. And this is what we get. And then if we resolve it back to G, we sort of get a tension and release kind of situation. And that can be done anywhere. If I move this 2 frets up, we've got an A major, A augmented, raise the 5, back down to an A. An augmented chord is a product of some alternative minor scales, namely the harmonic melodic minor scales. The whole tone scale is really where it comes from, and there's more to it than that, but that's essentially the bare bones. That's what an augmented chord is. That's what it does, and we go into detail more about how to implement this and some more practical applications in other videos, but it's just good to know how to do them for now. So thanks for watching the 3-5-1 series on the G, B, and E strings, and we'll probably see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Take care.